Hello all the crazy people out there, my name is Michael, I like wizards and dragons and making games, and welcome back to Making Games in Game Maker in 3D. Alright, hooray! The sanest of endeavors. So, last time we've got a bunch of, or really in the last couple of videos, we have added a bunch of visual effects to the game. So, billboard shaders, skyboxes, this Nader's 3D particle system, and some other things. And today I am going to get to work on cleaning up the project a little bit and adding something of a just some data really related to video and quality settings and that kind of thing. So firstly, let us get to work in cleaning up this monstrosity of an asset browser. Some of it is like the extensions for this game are already organized kind of nicely and neatly, because extension makers tend to be good about putting their own code in their own folders and that sort of thing. I, on the other hand, have just been throwing everything down willy-nilly, and that's not really the best for organization. I can start by just putting all of these texture images in a textures folder, and I think that's a good place to start. I guess I don't want to just fall into like the routine of having like a sprites folder and a rooms folder and a shaders folder. Like you would, like by default, the default folders the GameMaker provides you. I think instead, I'll put all of those in a deferred rendering folder, and that's going to be all the stuff related to either the deferred shader itself or the gbuff shaders. There are some test objects. Or test images anyway. I can put the things that definitely will want to be replaced eventually in that in the test objects folder. And let's see. Let's create a group for like critical stuff. And that can be, for example, the camera code. That can be the obj game object, room 1, and I think I'm not exactly sure what I want to do with group_particles. Maybe a system folder. System stuff. And that can be where I put my particles. Alright, so that's going to be a bunch of the asset browser reorganized. I will attempt to keep everything, like, not a mess as this game's development progresses. And I'm also going to want to go into here, I think, and what is this? Okay, that was like the Unity import tests. I won't include that, but I will go into the LNAG wizards folder, create myself a workspace, as I often like to do, and this is going to go in the git ignore. We do not have a git ignore yet. It's usually a good idea to also ignore the resource order file, but I haven't done that yet. That should allow Git to successfully ignore everything in that folder. All right. Not a very large commit, but it'll do. Let's see. There's also the matter of this. The Wizard School test objects. I'm gonna save this in here as just Wizard School, and we're gonna slowly start like using this for real. There is the vertex format that we're gonna be using. There are going to be some oh, did I? Oh no, I did enable the collision shapes in this version of the Penguin. Some collision shapes for well, collision shapes for objects, and also I may also like double some collision shapes as like attach points. So like if we have a player, we can add like a sphere, which is going to be the point on the player object that the camera is anchored to, or something like that. I haven't decided. That's been an idea that's been kicking around in my mind. But anyway, that is organization. I guess if I wanted to organize it further, it probably would make sense to put the like the model stuff in its own folder, and eventually I will have a folder for like map data in here, or block singular isn't really used anymore. Audio, or using Chatterbox yarn files for cutscene sequences and that kind of thing, and just planning spreadsheets if I end up using those. There's probably going to be a bunch of stuff in this workspace folder eventually. Let's see. None of that is going to be committable, right? Because that was all, like, in the git ignore. So, it's going to be two things out of the way. Video settings. This is probably going to be the bulk of this episode. I'm going to create myself a script in the system stuff, and I'm going to call that group_video settings. I guess there's really no reason not to. I'll do this my traditional way of making a macro for video, and that's going to point to just a global variable hidden out of the way. I'm also going to do something that I haven't really done in the past in GameMaker follow-along series, I think, and I'm going to make an actual constructor. For this, let's say video equals, and this will basically be a template for the default video settings. And should the user want to do something like reset to defaults, it'll just be a matter of setting, like reassigning a new video settings constructor instance to the macro that's being accessed, and like all the settings won't have to be like manually reset or anything silly like that. So this is going to contain a bit of data. Some obvious ones. Such as the resolution. I don't know, am I allowed to have a variable called FPS? I don't think I am, because that's a built-in one. Let's see, I'm looking through my notes on things that I've had in the past. Things like particle density, I mentioned that a few videos ago when I did particles. A resolution scale. So if you're playing this on a computer that's not very strong, and or a Raspberry Pi, you could drop that to like 2/3 on the x-axis, and not have to process quite as much in the deferred pass. We're gonna make that 1 and 1 for now. Full screen. I'll also store full screen in here. Particle density can be 100%. And I'll probably also write some like accessors for this, and accessors and mutators. Or at least mutators, since GameMaker doesn't really have a concept of private variables. So that if you set the resolution, GameMaker will actually set the resolution of the game. Let's see. Something like this. I forget exactly how I did this in Bombardier and in Buggy as Hell. I know in Buggy as Hell it was really weird, because I had that thing going on with like the UI on the side, which made sense at the time, would not do it again, but you might want to validate these, like make sure that width and height are like numbers, and also like greater than 0 and less than 10 billion or whatever. But window set size, width and height. And we can also say, I think, window center, to make sure that it's in like the middle of the screen. And this is going to come with the territory of like making sure that the application surfaces are the correct size, and the GBuff surfaces are the correct size. If I were to just go into the step event and say like if keyboard check pressed VK, let's say F1, I'll play around with the function keys a bit. Video.set resolution to like 1280 720. We could say like if you hit F2, we can go 1366 and 768. F3 can be like 1600 by 900, and F4 can be like the full 1080. And we are going to have to make sure that the resolution, that the application surfaces are correct and that sort of thing. That destroyed my GBuff surfaces, so I guess I'm going to have to do that now and not later. All right. I'll commit those changes first. So let's go to pre-draw, I think. I do like to do this in pre-draw. Where are we? Draw event, pre-draw. And I don't have one here. That's the literal group I want to script. So these are going to be my bits of code that I like to use that are just generally helpful bits of code. Surface validate is a function that I like to have in pretty much every project. And this is going to be a nice, easy function that will check to see if a surface 1 exists, 2 is of the right size. And if it does exist and if it is the correct size, it'll just return the surface. And if it doesn't exist or if it is not the correct size, it will create a new one. So I can say if surface exists, if surface get width equals W and surface get height, surface equals H, then we can simply return surface. If the surface does exist and if it is not the right size, we can surface free the surface and we can return surface create of the right size. And otherwise, if the surface does not exist, return surface create with height. And this is kind of redundant, because by that point that surface will be created and returned either way. And that is a very handy function for things such as you know, these two, to make sure that they're the correct size. So if I were to go into the pre-draw event, let's just put that like here or something like that. We can say self.gbuff underscore position. What is it? Is it still called gbuff depth? I should update that name. Because it is no longer depth, it is position. Put all these event codes in here. I guess I'll have to rename the sampler in the deferred shader also. Okay. Let's close all these. Way too many tabs open. Anyway, getting back to the pre-draw event, we can say self.gbuff position is going to be equal to surface validate. And the width can be a width and the height can be a height. And I'm going to say target size is going to be video.resolution. And this is going to be a slightly different accessor later, taking into account the possible resolution scale. But target size.x, target size.y, we can do the same thing with the material gbuff, and that is going to ensure that they both exist and they both are the correct size. And since you can't exactly do this on the application surface because the application surface is special, we can just say surface resize application surface target size.x target size.y. That is going to ensure that no matter what the size of the screen is, we're going to have the all of these surfaces being the correct size at all times. So F1 is going to make you a little smaller. Did that mess up the lighting? That appears to have messed up the lighting. The lighting is, like, gone. What happened to the position? Like, there is a single tiny bit of lighting down there. And I don't know why. Alright. Interesting. That is not something that I usually see happening when I do things like that. I'm also going to have to organize the draw event today, aren't I? Tell me. Oh, it's the surface format, I think. Okay, yeah, that would make sense. I'm also going to need to, like, throw another term in here. Surface. We can make the default version RGB8E norm, which is the default surface format for GameMaker. Yeah, I was thinking, like, if I set these to, like, -1 in the create event and just, like, only initialize them here, would anything weird happen? And then it hit me in the face. That's R8U norm. That's exactly what the problem is. The surface formats. Okay. My future self is going to have to go through... That doesn't look right. Was that a different problem? Alright, UNorm RGBA32 float. I'm dumb. This was never actually being used. Okay. Get rid of that breakpoint. Did not mean to put that there. We can initialize those to -1. Everything's going to be fine. Alright, if I change the window size, we still have lighting. Okay. That's cool. So, it'll only take 2 seconds to run, so I guess I'll show it again. It's going to be fine if I initialize those surfaces to -1. Let's see, that was an ordeal. This is going to be a couple of things. Validating the gbuff surfaces being foremost among them. I can probably... like, not have those on screen at all times anymore, because I'm probably mostly finished setting up the deferred renderer, and I don't need to, like, see that. Let's see. Getting back to the video manager. I'm also going to want the, like, get rendering resolution. And that's going to be a function, and that's simply going to return... x can be self.resolution.x times self.scale.x, and y can be the same thing on the y-axis. And this is not going to make any major difference right now, but it will in the future, should I choose to set the rendering resolution to some other value in post-draw. This should be draw surface stretched to fill the entire screen. So if I just do this now, nothing strange or unusual is going to happen. We are going to be able to show the gbuff surfaces if you want, and we are also going to have the game rendering at whatever the resolution is. If I were to just drop this to half, which is going to be extreme, that also does not look correct. Lighting disappeared again. Even though everything looks approximately correct. Why did lighting disappear again? So it's actually kind of hard to see, but the resolution is dropped. I might actually reduce this like by another factor of 4 on each axis just to make the pixels huge. 1/8 and 1/8. So this is doing what it's supposed to, but why did lighting evaporate? That shouldn't have affected any... That looks very wrong. Okay, so that was simply, for whatever reason, and in hindsight I can see why that would have been a problem, but I would have expected it to be a different kind of problem. GPU set text filter being false when you scale it like that. Again, let's make it tiny so that you can really see the pixels. That caused some weird banding. Okay, so we're at a 1/5 the resolution on all axes. This looks very strange. Would not recommend dropping the resolution to a 1/5 and blowing it up like this. But yeah, something like 0.75 is probably more realistic. I guess if you're like a fan of like 4K gaming and you want your internal rendering resolution to be like 1440p, then 1440p is what, half of 4K? So maybe that would be reasonable, but okay, a little bit of aliasing around the sides. I'll have to find out if there's like a good way to get rid of that. So, with that mystery solved, we can do that. Let's see. Things like set full screen, set frame rate. I don't think, like... Do I want to have accesses for all of these? Or, really, in a lot of ways, it might not even make sense to have a separate full screen value, because you can simply say window get full screen. This is just going to straight up return a copy of the resolution scale value. We're copying it because if you return this and then change the values, then it's going to be modifying the pointer, and that's going to possibly have some knock-on effects. Frame rate. We've established that I can get rid of that. Particle density. Alright. Frame rate's another one that is kinda built into GameMaker. I guess technically the base resolution is too, because that's the window size, but I'm gonna keep that separate anyway. We can say... Oh, you know what? I thought of a very good reason to keep track of the full screen value separately, which is when it comes to saving and loading, if you want to just serialize the whole struct and load it back in later. But alright, let me deal with one thing at a time. Turn self.framerate. We can also have some setters. I guess I'll go all in with the getters, the axes over here. And we can also say Should it be X, Y, or WH? To keep it consistent with the other one, I'll make it WH. We do, of course, have... So this doesn't need to change anything because this is handled in the game objects through draw event. Something like static set particle density. That one's pretty basic. I do wish sometimes the Game Maker gave you private variable access, but some things are not meant to be. There's also full screen. Did I bring that one back yet? This one will have a secondary effect. What was another one? Frame rate. So set frame rate. This is going to be in frames per second. That's going to update our internal values, and that is also going to game set speed. Game speed, or the value is going to be frame rate, and the type is going to be game speed FPS. Okay, so we can play around with some of these. If I were to go into the the step event where some other test code is, and say if I want F5, for example, to be set. Set the resolution scale to 1 and 1, and F6 can be set this to 0.5 and 0.5. We can see that this will be reflected in real time as we hit those buttons. Set frame rate between 30 and 60. Let's say F7 and F8. Set frame rate to 30 and set frame rate to 60. And full screen, I guess, is another toggle, which can be on F9 and F10. That's going to make the recording interesting. Why do I keep losing that last curly brace? I don't know where that keeps going. Anyway, the various function keys should have some interesting things happening. We've got, of course, the size. So that's a small window, and full screen true is F10, correct? All right, so that's going to be a black screen on OBS, and it's going to take a few seconds to catch up. If I wanted to set the rendering resolution to something, it flashes sometimes when I do that. So that's going to be 100%, and that's going to be 50%. This is I guess I could draw the values in the corner of the UI so that you can see what they are without having to squint at the video. But this is 1080p at 50%. This is 1080p at 100%. Frames per second. This is 30, right? So that does look a tiny bit... Oh, you can really see it when I move the camera, but that's a tiny bit more jittery on the particles over here versus 60 FPS. I think the particles are correctly delta timed. I don't remember if the Snitter delta timed his particles or not. We can put that back in a window, and OBS is going to take a couple extra seconds to find it. There we go. Again, this is still 1080p. This is playing with the scale. All right. I'm satisfied that these work. It may be a good idea to, whenever you change one of these, auto-save it to a file. I am 35 minutes into the recording. You know what? I'm going to do that. All right, so... I misspelled accessors. Let's give you a save method. Would this be a good idea to make a macros code file Alright, so we're gonna make a macros code file. We can say macro file video settings, and this can be simply options video.json. You could save these together with other settings in the game if you want. Later on, you could not. I'm gonna keep the video settings and the audio settings separate later. Let's say we're gonna serialize ourselves. Var JSON is gonna be equal to JSON stringify ourself. This is something that by the time this video goes out, should have a video up on, and that is some changes to the way that statics work with static get and static set that makes this sort of thing substantially easier. Var save buffer can be buffer create. String byte length. Is that going to include the final \0? Am I going to want to, like, make that -1? It doesn't matter. We're going to buffer read text out of it anyway. The buffer type can be buffer fixed. The alignment can be 1. Buffer write. Save buffer. The type can be buffer text. The string can be JSON. Buffer save. The buffer can be the save buffer. The file name can be file_video settings. Buffer delete. Although, alright, this is gonna bother me if I don't do it. I'm gonna make that a static variable so that there's only ever one copy of this buffer created, so that every time you save and load settings, it doesn't have to be recreated and destroyed, because that's a little bit more resource intensive than it has to be. I can say if buffer get length or buffer size. Buffer get size of the save buffer is less than the string byte length of the JSON. I can say buffer resize. So we can expand it if we have to. Buffer seek, save buffer, buffer seek start to the beginning. We can write that. We can buffer write. Actually, I can just say buffer save extended. And that will, the offset from 0, buffer tell. And that will prevent any junk data on the end from being written to the file. That should be all I have to do. So now I can say in any of the, like, set anythings, I can call self.save. And video settings will be saved automatically. Let's see, I'm gonna run this. It's not gonna, there's no code for loading settings back in or anything like that, but if I set like the resolution to 900p and the frame rate to like 60 or something like that, and that should be good. We should have saved the file, and if I open up a Windows Explorer window and go to my my local app data folder, and if I look in the LMAG wizards, we should have a video options JSON. No, I don't want to update Notepad++ at this time. Let's prettify that to make it a little bit easier to read. Okay. Oh, is the default resolution scale still 75%? Did I never set that back to 1? That can be set back to 1 because we know that works. Unknown built-in variable is still being loaded. I forgot that was there. I'm gonna have to like submit a bug in the GameMaker beta that when you JSON stringify a struct, you get the unknown built-in variable. Someone's ringing the telephone. I really wish they wouldn't. I also noticed that it correctly serialized the true-false boolean. Anyway. Alright, this is gonna push the length of the video a little long, but I do wanna load this in. Can I get rid of the block singular stuff? I'm gonna get rid of the block singular stuff. I'm also gonna go and get rid of that from the data files because I don't need that there, and it's just taking up space. Alright, take that test block. Let's say, I'm gonna try catch a whole bunch of stuff. And if none of this works, then we can just, like, use the default video settings, and we can say, try... We can load the video settings buffer. We can save our JSON is going to be buffer read a text string from that. We can say of our loaded settings is going to be equal to JSON parse. We can assign its type with our video settings type is going to be equal to static get video. We can static set onto the loaded settings the video settings type. Buffer delete the settings buffer because we don't need that anymore. Really, we can do that like up here. And for good measure, we can apply our video settings. So we can say like set resolution, set resolution scale, set full screen, set frame rate, set particle density. At least for the values that are going to have something changing when you do them. Loaded settings dot set resolution, and loaded settings dot set resolution scale. Actually, that one isn't needed because that doesn't change any of the like game window values. Loaded settings dot set full screen. Loaded settings dot set frame rate. And you'll notice that none of these have arguments. So I will give you default arguments of whatever the current values are. This should let us both load and validate the change settings. So if anything goes wrong, I'm going to want to do one more thing, and that is going to be, if nothing goes wrong, I'm going to say video equals loaded settings, as I mentioned. Else we can just show debug message. And we can just print out the error like that. Okay. Hopefully this works. I noticed that the game did not crash. This does not look like 900p, so something must have gone wrong. Did we get an error anywhere? Unknown object.w not set before reading it. You definitely should have a copy of that value. Oh, it's .x and .y. Because, XY width height we really gotta just get me to agree on which one I'm gonna use and get me to stick with it. Alright, so this is 900p, this is definitely 30 frames per second, and I do see some pixelation, so our settings did load correctly. Okay, that's good. If I were to go and delete that file, we would just have the default settings, and we would see a message in the console that says, file does not exist, or, okay, so that's the long message. Maybe I won't print out the long message, because that's like a lot of text. Which is a little excessive. Anyway, that is all I wanted to do today. Next time I'd like to get pretty much the same thing done for audio. Again, we're not going to be doing anything with actually like playing audio or creating an audio settings menu, but I do want to get a like a data structure like this in there for audio, the volume levels and that sort of thing. Okay. I can check that off, and we've got some progress. Let's see. I have to remember to archive these cards manually, because when you finish them, they don't get archived. Which I guess isn't really necessary, but I like doing it. Alright, next time. We are going to add audio settings, and I guess add audio playback functions too, which is not really going to be anything major, but just have a couple of methods in the audio struct that's like play BGM with the applied settings and play a sound effect with the applied settings and that sort of thing. We'll get to that next time. So, my name is Michael. I like Wizards and Dragons and making games. If you want the code for this, look for the GitHub repository down in the video description. Look for the 0.6 release for the stuff that got done today. I have a Patreon, so if you want to contribute to the channel, links to that can be found in all the usual places. Otherwise, I try to post about 2 game dev videos a week. One Let's Make a Game Like This, and 1 tutorial, so if any of that appeals to you, feel free to subscribe. I hope you all found this interesting, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to Army Armbuster, DJ Gibbles, Edward Holt, Game Maker, Gamer Player, Harold Gidry, Manta Ray, Project 103, Rowdy Coder, Syndra Larson, Squarecrow, VTroV, and Zenjament for supporting these videos. If you want to contribute to the channel, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.